Okay, this is Sarah Levitt with the Making Magnificence Project. And today, my guest is Brad Wilson, CEO Emeritus of Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina, and the founder of Wilson Strategic Consulting, and a veteran participant in the Making Magnificence Project. This is your third time back, I believe,
Right.
talking about leadership. I'm going to do your bio a tremendous injustice, and I'm going to read just a few of your accomplishments before we kind of dive into the bulk of the interview. Um, you served on the University of North Carolina System Board of Governors for 16 years and chaired that board for 4. You also served as executive in residence at Wake Forest University, North Carolina A&T State University, and UNC, and served on the Gubernatorial State Public Education Commission. You currently serve on numerous, I think I counted 7, nonprofit and charitable boards. And most recently, you were the director of the North Carolina Museum of History. For your public service, you were honored with North Carolina's highest civilian honor, the Order of the Longleaf Pine. Welcome, Brad Wilson. And that
Thank
really
you for the opportunity.
that it is a snippet. We're going to get into the work that you've done and are doing. So in our prior conversations, we focused mostly on your leadership journey. And in this conversation, we are still focusing on your leadership journey, but really it's a conversation about how you built your second act, how you kind of put that together post CEO at Blue Cross. And so I want to kind of wind back the clock because I have so many, you and I talked about this, Brad. I have so many clients right now who are looking at a runway of it could be 1 year, 2 years, maybe 6 at the max. They're seeing it coming and but they're on a very busy treadmill, so there's not a lot of bandwidth to think about it. Um, but it's there. It's kind of tapping at them. And so thank you for coming to have this conversation with me, to kind of explore what your process was, because from where I sit, my vantage point, you have constructed, we're going to talk about this, you've constructed a second act that is fulfilling, purposeful, fun, and integrated into a whole life. So I want to kind of talk to you about that. So let's rewind. So you're at Blue Cross and you were there till the end of 2017 and had been at Blue Cross for quite some time. You had built a good bit of your career there. Yes.
That's right.
Um, so what was kind of the initial process or thinking around your, I don't even like to say retirement because as I've said to you, what you're doing in retirement is what most of us do in our working years. But as you were looking at the finish line of Blue Cross, kind of what was going on for you? What was that process like and the time frame?
Sure. Let me quickly say thank you for the opportunity to join you again. I always enjoy our conversations. Um, and in your opening question, you hit on a very important point. When I started thinking about when I wanted to have a conversation with my board
Mm,
about transitioning, I never used the word retirement. Um, and I have called my third act, as you said, um, as transitioning.
yes.
And it was in fact a transition process. So I think the way that we think about it fundamentally is really, really important. Retirement seems so final to me, and the word was uncomfortable to use. Maybe it was my own psychological trick. I don't know. But I would say to everyone who's beginning to think about this process or is curious about what is your next act, start there. And how
Mm-hmm.
do you view it?
Mm-hmm.
How
Mm-hmm.
final will this next step be for you? And what is it that you might want to do? But back to the core of your question. Um, I started thinking about my transition 2 years
Hmm.
or so before I actually engaged the board and
Hmm.
introduced the idea of I'm closer to the end than the beginning. And I think we all need to begin some active thinking about what that looks like in terms of time frame, list all the dimensions of that
Yes.
question. And so it was a long time. And while it felt like a long time, it really wasn't. It
Yeah.
gave me enough time to do it leisurely
Uh-huh.
and
Good.
walk through the mental and emotional process of a transition.
Brad,
So
let me
that's a
stop you for
specific,
let me
yeah,
stop you if you
sure.
don't mind for just a
No,
second. So
please.
as you're
Mhm.
because you were CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield, like you were helming, you were at the helm of a large organization. It wasn't always a smooth ride. And so as you're talking about kind of giving yourself the leisurely time frame to think about
Mhm.
things, did you have any bandwidth to think about this as when you were CEO? And if you did, how did you even kind of create that space for yourself?
Well, I did, and that was one of the benefits of taking 2 years or thinking
Mm,
about it 2 years early. It
hmm.
wasn't a daily exercise, and it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily a weekly exercise. And maybe it'll be helpful to kind of frame. I was at Blue Cross for 22 years, the last eight as president and CEO. So I started in March of 2010, and my last day on the payroll was the last day of 2007. Team. So it was an exciting time to be in healthcare. Healthcare is always exciting, but let's remember that was the implementation of the ACA and lots of
Yeah.
transformation taking place. So it was a busy time, and so my point being, uh, the the you're mentally crowded, and you're
Hmm.
paying attention to your day job and your life and everything that's going on, and you have to do this for yourself. You have to be disciplined and say,
Hmm.
I think it's now time that I spend some of my days and to think about what does this look like? What's the process? And it was also helped by the fact that I was watching colleagues who had a longer career than I had, and they were beginning to transition. And so, as I watched those colleagues and good friends step away and move into another life, that helped accelerate and frame my thinking because one of the first things I did over that 2 year period of time is I spoke to five different individuals who I admired and respected. I had watched them move from a CEO role, they were all CEOs, into another life. And I observed that I thought they did it well and it looked
Mm.
interesting and it
Hmm.
looked like that looks like the way to do it.
Uh-huh.
And so I called them, set up time, and asked them, when did you start thinking about it?
Yeah.
What was your thought process? How did you end up working at the University of, or whatever it was that they were doing? And I listened to their advice and their counsel and their story and distilled from that the things that felt right for me,
Hmm.
and then began to focus on those particular ingredients. So let me just kind of sign off right there and let you
Yeah, no,
guide the
thanks.
conversation.
And so during that kind of 2 year runway period where you're thinking about it in a disciplined way, not every day,
Mhm.
but you're having these conversations.
Right.
Were there particular things in these conversations, Brad, that you were listening for?
Well, I wanted to know the why. Why did you decide to retire when you decided to
Yes.
retire or,
Yes.
or transition, whatever?
Yes. Right.
And then the how. How did you do it?
Yeah.
And so anything that would fit under those two categories, and then that led to very specific questions. Um,
Hmm.
and it was interesting that one reaction from everyone, or piece of advice, I guess, or experience, that'd be a better word, the experience they had. They said, look, as soon as the announcement hits the wires that you are going to leave at a date certain in the future in order to leave the company room and a boardroom to do a search, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, your phone is going to begin to ring
Yeah.
and you're going to have all these opportunities right out of the gate. So don't worry about, because I was a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
walk out the door and the phone
Right.
stops ringing
Right.
completely, metaphorically speaking.
Right. Yeah.
And they said, no, 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 that is not what's going to happen. And I was a bit of a cynic in that regard. I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, oh, sure, that's you, not me. And they were right.
Mm-hmm.
That did happen. So that was an example of a real experience that they went through that I would not have. My operating assumption was
Yes.
it's going to be quiet the very next day that you walk out the door or after that announcement.
Yes.
And they were 100% right. So lots and lots of pieces like that. Now,
Yeah.
if, for example, I've already alluded to university work, a couple of those folks, that wasn't their exclusive engagement, but
Mm-hmm.
they were associated with or affiliated with, they were doing something with the university. And I would ask them, how did you make that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Did you
Mm-hmm.
apply?
Right.
Did
Right.
you
How
go
does that?
online and,
Right.
do a
Right.
search?
Right. How does that
And
work?
so I learned a lot about what was going to happen or what happened to them. And therefore, it gave me comfort and a base upon which I could make certain assumptions about things and process,
Yeah.
and also ideas about how I wanted to spend my time.
So it sounds like your process, because I think for a lot of people, they see um, a precipice in a way and don't have the bandwidth or don't think they have the bandwidth for kind of a process. And so that's part of what I want to kind of
Mhm,
dive into before we, you know me, I've got like 10 more questions at
mhm.
least. But it sounds like your process was so far. Um, you gave yourself um, 2 years before that door was closing. So you gave yourself the luxury of the time and the bandwidth to kind of think about it without a panic really or a hurry
Right,
about it.
right.
You talk to other people whose journeys um, you respected and admired. Like that
Mhm.
picture looked appealing to you. Was there anything else, Brad, that you were doing to kind of that was part of the preparation for the transition?
Yeah, I think so. I never really thought about the that specific question, Sarah, in that context. Um, but most likely, or not most likely, I would respond by saying that I did work on getting myself emotionally prepared.
Hmm.
Now, that's hard to do,
Hmm.
but scenario playing or role play, think, well, let's pretend
Mm.
that you actually have to step away quicker than you want. I mean, for whatever reason, there could be
Hmm.
a health
Hmm.
consequence or something like that. Uh, are you ready to do that? Are you prepared to not be right in the center of the arena 24/7 because that's where, in large measure, have been your entire life? The
Yes.
arena may be bigger, but and it certainly was at Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina. But you're always, if you're fully engaged in your endeavor in your professional life, that's the arena. And I think I was well served by that.
Hmm.
And I did talk to these colleagues about how did you mentally prepare yourself? Forget
Yeah.
all the things that you're going to do and are doing, but how did it feel? Did you have a moment of panic? And if so, why did you have that moment of panic? And how did you react and respond to it? And I
Hmm.
had my own moment of panic at one point
Hmm.
in time. Now, it didn't take over my life, but I was prepared. I was reasonably prepared for it. And they all kind of laughed and said, yes, that is going to happen. And it's okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that preconditioning, if you will, both intellectually, professionally, emotionally, psychologically, all of those boxes, you need to spend time thinking about that, and continuing your, what I hope we're all engaged in is constant self-awareness and evaluation
Hmm.
across all of those dimensions. And then again, having 2 years to kind of meander through all of that because you're not pressured.
Yes.
I mean, you're in as much control at that point in time as you will ever
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So I think that's all mentally healthy. And I'll close on this because you triggered something earlier. Life is full and crowded. If you're going to
Hmm.
wait until you're not busy, you have the spare time, whatever, to think about it, you'll never get there. It's being self-disciplined, just like I'm going to do my workout
Hmm.
today.
Hmm.
And unless something catches on fire, you just stop what you're doing and you go do it. Or I'm going to go to my child's graduation or my son or daughter's soccer game. And there's a million other things you could be doing, but you just
Hmm.
have to decide you're going to do it. And this is very, very important. And we're not, as leaders, probably we fail more often than not of doing things for ourselves.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you just have to do it. You have to decide, I'm going to dedicate the time
Yeah.
and spend time doing it.
I'm so glad it's interesting because one of the questions I was going to segue into was because you mentioned the emotional, and you've just touched on this again, kind of the emotional and psychological preparation
Hmm?
for this kind of transition. Um, and the moment of panic, or longer moments of panic. What would you say to leaders, to executives who are kind of looking at this transition that's coming up? What is the kind of panic that is natural to expect? What's that? What comes up?
Well, I'll just share with you my moment of panic. It didn't occur until after I left
Hmm.
Blue Cross. That went, the whole process went better than I could have imagined. Uh, Pick any part of it. But about 3 weeks after, third week in January, I got up one morning and I was following the good advice, which I'll go ahead and give right here. Everyone said to me, do not have anything to do for 4 to 6 months from the day you walk out the door. Don't say yes, say maybe, call me back. I'll think about it because you can begin day one of your transition oversubscribed. If you say
Mm.
yes to all the stuff that's going to come that you are not going to solicit. That was the thing that was hard to believe, but it happened.
I was just thinking that it's
So,
probably hard to believe. Right,
right,
right.
it was
That's
hard to
part of
believe.
it too. It's like, oh gosh, am I? Yeah, right. Yeah.
But literally, when again, after my announcement that I was going to leave hit the wires, within the first week, that I had 5 conversations, people calling me saying, when you're ready, some of them said, when you're ready. Some said, we want to have a conversation with you about, and fill in the
Hmm.
blank.
Hmm.
So one good piece of advice I got from all 5, they said, don't panic then,
Hmm. Hmm. Right.
because they say, oh, I've got to till this soil now because it's here. Say, I've got 9 months left to go, which I did from the public announcement till the target date. I'm fully engaged and focused on my job. I'm happy to talk with you at some time later. Let's pause the conversation. But then the next piece where I'm started was, be prepared to do nothing, little or nothing, for 4 to 6 months. And my question to my colleagues was, why? Why that long?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, because you're going to need it and you don't know that you need it. And all I can do is tell you that you're going to need it.
Hmm.
And you don't know how tightly you're wound. That was
Hmm.
one quote. You don't know how tightly you're
Hmm.
wound until
Hmm.
you don't have 300 emails a day to respond to and the phone's constantly ringing. And they were 100% right.
Hmm.
So 3 weeks into what ultimately was about a 5 month I'm look at my calendar and there's nothing on it except what I want to do. Um, I had a panic that, or my head started spinning. This is the first time since you were 9 years old that you
Yeah.
aren't doing something to earn a dollar,
Yeah. Yeah.
from a paper route to whatever, or some kind of meaningful engagement
Yeah.
that you're being compensated and you're engaged in doing this, that, and the other. And it just kind of spun out of control.
Hmm.
Okay, what am I going to do? What if I'm not truly financially prepared? And I knew that I was.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'd done that, all that due diligence,
Right. Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
just, I guess that was it. There was an emotional avalanche,
Yes.
and I didn't have to talk to anybody about it. But I had to work my way through it,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
and just went through that experience. So it's okay that it happens. And my colleagues had told me it's going to happen. It's okay. You're going to be fine. Talk to somebody if you need to, friends, family, whatever,
Right.
and it will pass. It
Yeah.
was part of I'll use the metaphor, the 7 stages of grief, the 7 stages of transition. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's the
Seven
answer to
stages.
the panic
Well, it's
question.
interesting you say like seven stages of grief, because I would imagine there is a lot of grief in this.
Hmm.
And a grief of, I mean, you tell me, like, who am I without that? Like, is it a question of identity? Is that part of the psychological emotional preparation? To your point earlier about being in the center of things, the center of the arena, then it's like, well, if I'm not, then who am I and am I relevant? Talk to me. It may not be, but I'm wondering.
No, no. I mean, yes, it's you said a lot right there, and there's a lot of themes and melodies in what you just said. But generally speaking, yes. Um, I've done some coaching and talking with people that are thinking about retiring, both personally and professionally, and it's interesting to hear the response to the question. Um, that elicits them to say something like, my job is my life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
That's one way to describe it.
Hmm.
Or I am wrapped up and into my profession, and I'm concerned about walking away. And it might be manifested in terms of, what are they going to do without me?
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
okay to say
Hmm.
that. But
Hmm.
the old adage, none of us are indispensable.
Right, right. Yeah.
But where you are in that emotional set is really really important. The the more that you view yourself as the person that you are
Hmm.
in being defined by your title,
Hmm.
position, job, the more you need to work on this pathway of emotionally and psychologically preparing yourself, because all of the circumstances of that position will no longer be present in
It's
your
so well
life.
said. Yeah.
Period. Full
Yes.
stop.
Yeah, that's
That
so well
is
said.
going
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
And coming to terms with that,
Yeah.
it is, in my view, um, that's not who you are.
Hmm.
And you need to be prepared to be someone else,
Hmm.
to be yourself,
Hmm.
actually.
Hmm.
And there will be places where you can deploy your intellectual capital, your life experience, your emotional and psychological um, assets. And that's what's important. You got to figure that out, because a cold and hard stop.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people that I've spoken with
Yeah.
who've called me and said, I want to have coffee. And here's the quick story. They come in and they say, I retired usually 60 to 90 days ago,
Mm-hmm.
walked out the door. My plan was I was going to fish, play golf, garden. I've done all of that. I've caught all the fish in the sea. I've played all the golf I can play. The flowers are in bloom. I'm driving my partner crazy.
Yeah.
I'm driving myself crazy, and I don't know what to do. And it
Hmm.
looks to me like it's worked pretty well for you. What do I do now?
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
to a person,
Yeah.
when you ask, well, tell me about it was they just worked and then they stopped.
Yes. There wasn't a process.
There was not a process,
Yeah.
or they decided 90 days before they left, or 6 months,
Yeah.
or whatever. It was a very short period of time. And whether it's a big corporation, multi-billion dollar corporation, or whether it was a business a person built from scratch and it's now the family business and the
Hmm. Hmm.
the children are running it and it's wildly successful, it's still your has become their identity. And that's
Yeah.
probably even harder, I would
Yes.
suspect.
Yes.
But yet, therefore, I'll conclude on this: the importance of planning and scenario, playing it through in your head.
Yeah.
If I had 2 weeks with nothing to do, what would I do? What is my
Mm.
purpose?
Hmm.
Is there something I've never done that I want to do? I've always wanted to do,
Yes. Yeah.
and make a list, write it
Yes.
down,
Yes.
and
Yes.
play with the clay
Hmm.
until
Hmm.
you shape it into something that's meaningful to you.
What did I thought it was so beautifully said, kind of that it's really a time to kind of be yourself, like to deploy the experience, the intellectual capital, et cetera. But it's a time to just kind of show up as being yourself as opposed to the role. That's how I hear it.
Right.
Um, what did that mean for you to just be yourself?
Well, again, with the good advice that I got from my counselors, and frankly, talking to people who came to me with opportunities for service,
Hmm.
um, that provided a framework for me to uh, begin to mentally design or aspire what would the perfect retirement, or not retirement, perfect transition and engagement look like. So here's an example. I had never thought about uh, having the opportunity to be on a college campus and do teaching. Now, had I not gone to law school,
Hmm.
my career path was going to be I was going to be a history professor. Okay, that's what I thought. So I've always had, and I've always loved going to school and being, I did 16 years on the UNC Board of Governors. And I enjoyed that work. It was a way to engage in that whole universe from
Hmm.
that perspective.
Hmm.
And so the phone rang, and it was the provost from Wake Forest, and he said, "We want you to come and spend time as an executive in residence." Well, I said, "What is that? And are you kidding me? What is it that I could possibly do?" And so an idea came to me in that regard, and the more I thought about it, the more excited I got about it. Of course, they wanted me to start, you know, as soon as I walked out the door. I said, no, I can do it the next fall. So in the fall of 18, I had a wonderful experience for 3 years as executive in residence at Wake Forest. And I bounced between the law school and the business school, doing all the things that you can imagine you would have the opportunity to do, teaching classes. My only proviso was I'm not making out exams and I'm not grading papers. I'm not qualified to do that. And they said, we're not asking you to do that. Uh, but it was wonderful. And simultaneously with that, I had spent some time between the School of Public Health and the business school at
Hmm.
UNC Chapel Hill.
Hmm.
And then later on, actually during pandemic times, I had a year at North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro. All different and unique experiences, but there was a portfolio of work. And it was diverse, it was challenging, it was fascinating, it was interesting, it was inspirational, and it gave me purpose. And
Hmm.
it was something you heard my story. I had kind of forgotten that's something I'd always wanted to do, but something I always wanted to do, and I got to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't a full time.
Yep.
I could still do other things,
Yep.
and I wasn't back in the gerbil wheel.
Yep. The treadmill. So, which leads beautifully to my next kind of question. So, and you've hinted at this, um, about the questions one might ask themselves about where they might begin to kind of explore. I'm also curious, so that's the internal. I'm curious about how you discerned among your interests, the opportunities that were coming to you. So, because there's this blank canvas in front of you,
Hmm.
right? Like as you're describing it, the foundation falls away. Like as you know, as you were just
Right.
saying, everything is just right, falls away. So there's this, I'm mixing my metaphors here, but there's a blank canvas in front of you. And so how did you discern among your interests and also the opportunities, Brad? Because I think a lot of where I'm going is I think a lot of people um, in my discussions with clients, I think as they look, again, there's not a lot of bandwidth for this. And as they look around, their thinking is really about, well, I could serve on a board. It's almost like they're not kind of
Hmm.
considering, to your point, well, what was it that I did love to do, and how might I find purpose in that, et cetera. So how did you discern among opportunities and your interests?
My thought process yielded uh, basically four categories.
Mm,
Once I was aware of that I might be attracted to university work, there was an education bucket.
mm-hmm,
And that can
mm-hmm,
take many forms. It doesn't have to
mm-hmm.
be, formal executive as a Wake Forest. It could be volunteering at the local high school
Mm-hmm.
or going
Mm-hmm.
to your grandson's class and reading once a week,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was this educational track. I've always been engaged in the public life of North Carolina, some way, somehow, doing
Yes.
something.
Yes.
And so there was this, I'll call it community service category, not for profit board work, whatever. Then there was obviously business.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, do I want to serve on a public board,
Mm-hmm.
corporate board?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did decide that uh, and learned very quickly, as my colleagues told me, you still have value. People are going to call you,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to set up a consultancy and just think if you want to do that, think it through, do it right, and you'll have the opportunity to say no more often than you
Mm-hmm.
think, or yes. So I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And then last but not least, uh, personal time,
Mm-hmm.
which was number one. My standard is I want to be as busy as I want to be. And that's very, very important. Two times since January 1 of 2018, I have gotten very, very grumpy with myself because I oversubscribed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And not that I couldn't do it,
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
but I didn't want to do it. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to be out of breath, running
Mm-hmm.
through airports,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, under pressure. Uh, it's not necessary, and that was my fault. I had no one to blame but myself. And so you take the steps necessary. You don't take on another client. You finish that project and you're done, and you don't replace it with another one. You readjust the way you're operating your calendar. And one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do is be your own administrative assistant. Now, some people will not do that. They'll have the wherewithal and
Mm-hmm.
have some support in that regard, and good for you. But I had to learn how to do a lot of things that I hadn't had to do in a very long period of time. So that's what I did. And so I would put things in each of those buckets. And then I would say, well, if you were designing this for that would you think would make you satisfied, what would it look like?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
would answer those questions. And as the incoming came,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of put it in a blender and make decisions on what you're going to do. And I've made some mistakes along the way. Fortunately, none of them were big ones. But a couple of times I was sorry that I got myself wrapped up with this particular client. But we all came out at the right place at the end. So is that responsive to your question?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
No,
was
it's
my
great.
framework.
No, it's
Mhm.
yeah. So it sounds like you um understood what your interests were. And we're also, Brad, I'm also hearing kind of, and of course, tell me if I don't have this, where your curiosity was.
Yes.
So, for example, when Wake Forest says, "Hey, you want to come over and be an executive in residence?" You're like, "What's that?" Right? Like that's the
Mhm.
curiosity
Right.
piece. Tell me more. So it
Mhm.
sounds like you kind of tuned into that and had these four distinct buckets. And then as opportunities were coming, it shaped the buckets, but also you could kind of, slot them in. And I love what you said about personal time being number one. I have a follow up on that. Was it hard? So going from an executive life where your time is not really your own
Mhm.
to prioritizing it as being number one, was that an internal emotional psychological shift that you had to make?
You had to get used to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're running constantly at a certain
Yes.
velocity,
Yes.
when you stop,
Yeah.
I mean, the metaphor would be, I mean, your heart is still racing, but you're stationary.
Yeah.
And it takes a while for that to adjust, everything to kind of find its own equilibrium.
Yeah.
Likewise, you put it in reverse, and that's what I was alluding to. When my heart rate or blood pressure got to a level that I didn't enjoy, recognizing I didn't have to tolerate that,
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
you calibrate back.
Mm-hmm.
The important thing is, or one of the important things to understand about yourself is just what is that balance that you want to
Mm-hmm.
maintain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my wife and I decided that, well, one of the things that we wanted to do was do some traveling. Of course, the pandemic got in the way of all of that and couldn't uncontrollable variable. But so that's a priority for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we look out, forecast, sign up for our trips, and that time's
Yep.
off the grid.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I always very careful to explain to clients, particularly if it's a retention arrangement where we're going to be working together regularly for a long time. Uh, have an understanding now. How much of my time do you want? What is
Mm-hmm.
your expectation?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
let's just be clear. And it's not that you're doing it with a stopwatch. That's not the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
But if they say, well, we're going to need you for 40 hours a week, then
Mm-hmm.
I'm not your person.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody else. Um, and then I have kept and I still have a very diverse and interesting collection of clients where we have found a pace of work
Mm-hmm.
and a schedule of engagement that they say to me is meeting their needs, keeps me engaged and fresh and excited and working. And yes, you can be fairly rewarded for your efforts.
And that's just one bucket, Brad. I mean,
Right.
you've got, your board service, your community service. That's just, um, you mentioned kind of purpose earlier, and I'd be curious to hear and interested to hear your thinking on um, what I see sometimes is executives have been on the treadmill for so long, right? They've been earning a living, and maybe a long time ago when they were first starting out, they thought they were going to do something, and they oftentimes got an MBA, fell into a job, and stayed in it. Um, Great financial reward, made their contributions. But when it's time to look at this second act, they don't really have a sense of what would bring them fulfillment, and how to even kind of connect with purpose. What would you say to someone who's asking themselves, what do I want and what would be fulfilling?
Well, I think one way to discover the answer to that is goes back to the time off
Mm-hmm.
that you should immediately prepare to take right after you walk out the door.
Yeah.
I mean, at least for me and others that I've talked with and hopefully have contributed to their process. Um, you got to unwind. You got to get, I mean, it just takes time to get your head completely out of the old game, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's no easy way to do it. It just, the clock has to tick. You're not going to take a pill and get over
Yeah,
it.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so that withdrawal
Mm-hmm.
part,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and some people have, it does take 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I've already said it took me about four, where I
Mm-hmm.
felt really fresh and
Mm-hmm.
ready. The adrenaline was back, and
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't anxious or impatient, but I knew I was ready to go to do something. And I stepped into it. I didn't, voila,
Mm-hmm.
here's my portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
It was incremental.
Mm-hmm.
But I made sure that I had things in each of my categories. So because I wanted a diverse
Yeah.
experience. But back to what should you do? You have to have time for that reflection. And I
Mm-hmm.
would say, we've touched on it earlier, Sarah. Is there something that you've always wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do that you've never done?
Mm-hmm.
Now's the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is teach a class and make out exams and grade
Yes.
papers.
Yes.
Um, but come to an affirmative conclusion about that.
Mm-hmm.
What makes your heart sing?
Mm-hmm.
Now you may
Mm-hmm.
not have the perfect answer, but the fact is you're in control. What are they going to do? Fire you? If you decide that you want to take a go to graduate school,
Mm-hmm.
what are they going to do? Fail you?
Yeah, right.
I
Yeah.
mean, you're not going to fail.
Right.
But the pressure is off. You're doing it because you want to do it and because
Mm-hmm.
it's fun and it's exciting. For me, going to school, like I said earlier, it was always, and being in and around a university was an exciting thing. And I've talked to a lot of people who, yeah, that, and virtually every university in the country has an adult continuing education program.
Mm-hmm.
So go take that creative writing class,
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
because you have to write a novel after you've, finished the course. But decide what really it is that you would like to explore or do. Maybe it is 100% corporate board service. I've got
Mm-hmm.
a good friend who's on 4 corporate boards.
Wow. Wow.
Now that's a very intense,
Yes.
and these are NFL size boards. Uh, that's a very intense existence, but he enjoys it. That's what he wants. He's doing it because he wants to
He
do it.
wants to do it. Yeah.
And he's passionate about it and he is really really good at it. But
Mm-hmm.
now he doesn't, he does play golf and there's some other things, but that's a that's a big lift, but he's happy.
Yep.
And he came to that by making a decision affirmatively. This is what I want to do,
Yes.
and he
Yes.
knows he can walk away from it anytime he wants.
It's interesting because I do see I'm one of the themes I'm seeing, one of the patterns is that as clients are thinking about this, what I call, the next chapter, um, quite frequently it's that they want to do something meaningful and impactful. They just don't have a sense yet of what that could be. One client mentioned running for office, another client mentioned, nonprofit board service, but that theme of doing something that matters seems to be prevalent.
Right. Yes, you
You
want
know,
to, leave the organization, the community, the world, or wherever it is that you're engaged better than you found it.
yes,
Is
yes,
and
yes.
that's probably one of the success factors that led your clients to be successful in the
Mm-hmm.
first
In the first
place.
place, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so you're not going to
yeah,
lose that. And that's
yes,
that is a real asset, because whatever you decide to do, you will be motivated by that spirit, and the organization will profit from.
yep,
But it's okay to explore. It's okay to say
yep.
it's not a life sentence.
I'm
I
very
think I
glad you.
want to be
Go
on
ahead.
this nonprofit,
Yeah,
and
like
go
it
do it for
sounds
3 years.
you had you were following your curiosity and kind of almost, I mean, I talk to clients about like experiment it, like let me try this. Like let me
Hmm.
see what this executive in resonance is all about.
Right. Sure.
Let me see, let me see what
Right.
it's like to teach a class but not have to grade the papers, which sounds really great.
Right. Oh, exactly. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's the way to do it. I have done that in a prior life, and that's it gives you a new respect for all
You,
the teachers that were in the front of the room to make it
yes.
fair and clear, and ask the right questions. But yeah, that's a real skill. That's a
Hmm.
real skill.
One of the things I wanted to make sure we touched on in this conversation is you have mentioned um, the importance of basically knowing when to leave, of
Mhm.
not staying too long. And
Right.
we see this not just in the business world, but we see this in sports, we see this in music, in any industry where um, the time has passed
Mhm.
and someone is kind of hanging on. So, how did you kind of determine when that time was, and what had you seen that made you kind of be thinking about this?
Well, I'm going to answer your question from a personal perspective and then talk about it a little more in the abstract
Right.
as the second part. For me, first of all, I knew how old I was. So the calendar also speaks to it.
Yeah.
I was aware that I had a really hard job and or complex job and that I
Yes.
loved, but it takes a lot out of you.
Mm-hmm.
I was aware that the statistics at that point in time suggested that the average professional lifespan for a corporate CEO was around 7 years. Okay,
Really? Wow.
that's not a determinative factor. It's just a data point.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. Um, I knew um, that the board, my board, of course, they were thinking about it, but it wasn't front of their mind because
Mm-hmm.
fortunately we had a great team and we were doing well. We had come out of some tough times, and we were the trajectory was positive. And when I went to them, I said, I just want to say to you that I've been thinking about this topic, and I think it's time that we think about it together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm confident that many of you have been thinking about it too. So now we need to do it together and in the sunshine,
Mm-hmm.
so to
Mm-hmm.
speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any beginning or end or proposal or whatever, but let's just engage and explore. And I was very fortunate to have a great board. And they said, thank you for bringing the subject up. It wasn't front of mind for us, but you're right. And I had made the decision that recognizing the trajectory of the company, that the best time to leave is when everything's going great, which for many people I've learned is the hardest time because that means your job is probably less complex than it could otherwise be, and you're kind of enjoying the ride. Uh, but but if it starts going in the other direction, um, you're not doing the organization any favors overstaying your welcome. And that's when the organization needs you more than any before. Or if you happen to be part of the problem, you can be part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you are not in charge of that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
process as much as you are when you're in the other pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the landscape is littered with people that stayed too long, played one season too many, and it didn't end well. Or it became a footnote or an asterisk, metaphorically speaking, on their career. So I would just encourage everyone to be self-aware in that regard. And no one's, we've already said it, no one's indispensable.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
They
Right.
will carry on.
Right. Which can be hard Um, to see and understand when you're in it,
Yeah, absolutely.
and working really hard to try to make the impact. Yeah. So it sounds like for you, that self-awareness piece. So part of it was timeline in terms of when you thought you would want to be,
Mhm.
in terms of the timeline of your life, but also things were going well, and you knew that some people could stay too long. And so it seemed like the right time, sounds
Right.
like. Yeah.
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 That was, and some of this is intuition.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
more art than science,
Yes.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're going to leave problems. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to leave
That's a
difficult
it's a
circumstances for
very good
someone
point.
else to deal with.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And that's you want to leave as few of those as you possibly can. But you can't say, I can't leave because I can't leave all this behind. You got to leave it all behind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't leave the relationships. The
Mm-hmm.
thing that I've still miss most in any endeavor I've ever had, practice of law, working in state government or Blue Cross, is I miss the people.
Yes.
But I've
Yes.
had a lot of coffee, still do, and
Yes.
it's always wonderful
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine
to
too,
see old
Brad,
friends.
going back to what you were saying at the beginning of the conversation, that kind of that whole, like the bottom falling out, right? Like on the day that you're done and the door closes
Hmm.
behind you, that's part of it too, is the structure of the office and the people and the routine. Like
Right.
that's all gone as well, which is its
Yes.
own transition.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
you work, you're, on the battlefield
Yes.
with lots of people for a long period of time doing important and meaningful work, enjoying more success than failure,
Mm-hmm.
and all the celebrations and emotional connections that are built as a result of that experience.
Yeah.
And then you've got to walk out the door and close it behind you, and the relationship will continue.
Mm-hmm.
But the circumstances that keep that relationship, or the circumstances that kept that relationship going, they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you have to redefine that relationship.
Yes.
I mean, people
Yeah.
will come to you and say, "What do you think?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Here's the question.
Yes.
What do you think we should do? Now,
Yeah.
the only person that you should be having that, in my view, that conversation with is when your successor calls you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
When
a great point.
when they
Yeah.
call you, you don't
Yeah.
call them.
You're
They
right.
call
Yeah.
you and
Yes.
say,
Yes.
"I'd like to spend some time talking with you about this topic."
Yes.
And they ask for your advice. And um, that's, you have that conversation, explicit conversation with your successor, so you know what the expectations
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is and what the rules that they want you to play by are, and then you play by them.
I've seen, yes, that's an excellent point. I've seen that too, where someone is leaving or about to leave or has left, and there is some they stay too long even though they've gone, and so it can confuse things for the people that are still in the
Right.
organization. Yeah. Um,
It, right. First of all, it's inappropriate. And yes, it's confusing. So now, if they come to you and ask for personal advice,
hmm hmm
okay, that's a different category.
hmm hmm
But you're no longer in charge. And if the situation was reversed, it's the golden
Yes.
rule.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and so just don't forget that. And I know sometimes that's hard. I've seen
Right.
those circumstances, and they usually don't end well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point. Well, as we wind down here, I want to ask you, well, first of all, I have one more question, but first of all,
Mhm.
if folks would like to get in touch with you for consulting or other matters, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, you can just send me an email at my email address, b.wilson6723 at gmail.com.
Okay.
Or you can give me a call, 919-810-8210. I'm easy to find.
Okay.
And so be happy to be
Generous.
of whatever assistance I can.
Um, the last question I wanted to ask you is the question I ask every interviewee of the Making Magnificence project. And that I don't think I've asked you this in our prior two interviews. This is new.
Uh-oh.
Um, is what does magnificence mean to you in your own life?
Well, not to overanalyze the question because, I could give you the lawyer's answer. It depends, right? But I will not do that. Um, let me begin. Let me frame the answer by providing a quote that has been on my desk since the first day I started practicing law. And I think it will capture the essence of your question. And you've seen it, and I imagine all of your listeners have seen it somewhere around and about in a shop somewhere. But it is 100 years from now. It'll not matter what my bank account was, the sort of house I lived in, or the kind of car I drove. But the world may be different because I was important in the life of a child.
Hmm.
Now you got to think about that quote. You need to think about it broadly
Mhm.
as well as specifically. That quote is talking about, a child. And my goodness, that's important. But if you think about it more broadly, to me, magnificence manifests itself when you are making a positive difference and improving a life or circumstance through your efforts, deploying your talents and abilities to that end. That can be managing a big corporation that produces things, goods and services that people consume. It can be in healthcare, making sick people better. It can be standing in front of a class of kindergartners, teaching them their alphabet,
Mhm. Mhm.
or anything in between. But the point is that you have made a conscious decision that you're going to deploy your talents for good. And others will take measure of that
Mhm.
and have an assessment of the order of magnitude. But once you know that you have done it, you've done your best, notwithstanding that you may have come up short from where you actually wanted it to be. But that I'm bad for sports metaphors, but that you have actually moved the ball down the field in a material and effective and doing it the right way. To me, you've
Mhm.
done a magnificent job.
Mhm. Mhm.
And there's plenty of opportunities once you engage in your transition to whatever the next chapter is. So I hope all of your listeners will find those as they go down that journey.
Thank you. It's a beautiful quote. I teared up, Brad. That's a beautiful quote. It's so simple and really moving. Thank you.
Sure. You're
My
welcome.
guest today has been Brad Wilson, CEO Emeritus of Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, the founder of Wilson Strategic Consulting. Brad, as always, it has been a joy to talk to you.
Always a pleasure. Already looking forward to next time if you'll have me back.
Always, always. Thank you.
Thank you.